Sorry it's been a while. I know this is it's like my mantra with you guys. I'm sorry. So I had been recording and doing some things with my equipment, and all of it got deleted because I don't even know what happened. So I lost like three whole things, and I got really upset with my equipment, so I haven't been recording. I was punishing it by like revolting against it and not doing anything. I was like, oh, you equipment. So now I have to re-record things, so that's what I'll be doing today. I have a lot of different bookmarks holding different things because some things were recorded and some things weren't recorded. So I've got a video that I had recorded like 3 in one day, and 2 of them deleted, 1 of them stayed, and then the one after that deleted. So I've got a piece. Now I have to go back and record the middle piece, and then so it's a bit much. So I apologize because the Fall of 5 has been delayed, Gray has been delayed because of this, but today's the day that I'm no longer angry with my stuff, and I'm going to fix it, and I'll post quite a bit today. I'm going to post 2 Fall of 5s because it's been so long, and I'm going to post the next Gray. All today. I don't care how long it takes me, it's going to happen. So, that being said, I'm going to read in this video chapters 15 through 17. I'm going to do 15, 16, and 17 in this video because the other video that I have already has 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 in it. And those will both be posted today. So I have to kind of keep my bookmarks in place so I know what I'm dealing with here. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Going to get started. Let me move that first bookmark out. Okay, The Fall of 5 by Pittacus Lore, Chapter 15. Alright. Wow, Johnny, I send you out for reinforcements and you come back with an old man, a nerd, and this little hobbit guy? Great job. Nine is there to sarcastically greet our group as soon as we enter the foyer of his ridiculous Chicago penthouse. So my first impression of him during our brief meeting in West Virginia wasn't off after all. He really is a douchebag. We're back later than anyone thought we would be. We searched for the Sathara stone, but it was gone and we couldn't stick around any longer than necessary. And while no one seems very happy about it, it's like they're trying not to blame 5 for losing it. For now, at least. After it was clear it was gone, after 5 had apologized for the 100th time, 6 just tossed her hair and shrugged. It's a rock, she said, sounding like she was trying to convince herself. A powerful rock, but we're pretty powerful on our own. Still, it's clear that it hasn't endeared 5 to anyone, especially 9. Be nice, Sarah warns him. Clearly the others have gotten used to his not-so-witty banter. By the way he and John slap hands in greeting, I'd say they've become even friends. 5, though, seems wounded. Next to me, he subtly tries to suck in his belly. Hobbit guy? He repeats, under his breath. It's from a book. I start to explain, but he cuts me off. I get the reference, 5 says. It isn't very nice. That's 9, says John, overhearing. He'll grow on you, or, well, you'll get used to him. 5 gives me a deadpan look like he doubts it, and I can't help smiling in return. I think we're both feeling a bit like outsiders in this penthouse. 6 tried to catch me up the best she could on the ride back, but there are a lot of new faces and stories here in Chicago, not to mention the most surreal hideout in history. I still can't believe the guard are living in a place like this. It's the kind of lavish pad they used to tour on that MTV show, the one about rich celebrities and their jealousy-inducing lifestyles. How 9 and his C-Pan managed to put together a place like this and keep it off the Mogadorian radar, to boot, is pretty impressive. John introduces everyone to 9, who has stopped cracking lame jokes long enough to meet 5 and my dad. And you remember Sam, right? John finishes. Obviously, 9 says, striding forward to shake my hand. His grip is rough and he towers over me so that I have to crane my neck up. He lowers his voice, not wanting the others to hear. Seriously, bro? Sorry about leaving you in the cave. That was sort of my fault. It's cool, I reply, a bit taken aback by the apology. 9 turns my hand over before letting me go, noticing the fresh pink scars on my wrists. So, they put you through it, huh? He asks solemnly. By his tone, it's like he's just realizing we have something in common. I guess I've joined the secret fraternity of Mogadorian torture victims. I don't know what to say, I just nod my head. You made it out, 9 says, patting me hard on the shoulder. Good for you, bro. John starts to lead us by 9, who's basically been standing right in our way. He sort of reminds me of one of those big dogs that jump all over visitors as soon as they come in the door. When he finally steps aside, I notice the 3 other guard that 6 told us about, 7, 8, and the younger 10. They're waiting where the living room starts, a little more patient than 9 and at least letting us get inside. If you're wondering what that horrible smell is, it's the vegetarian food Marina's cooking for dinner, says 9. Hey, the dark-haired 7, Marina, replies good-naturedly. It'll be good, I promise. Dinner, 9 snorts. Whatever, who cares? We've got the whole team together. They're pudgier and dorkier than expected, but I'm cool with it. Let's go blow some shit up. You need to calm down, dude. We've been driving for like 12 hours, 6 tells 9, shoving a bag of equipment into his chest. Here, make yourself useful. Sarah quickly follows suit, tossing her bag to 9. Before long, he's shouldering pretty much all the stuff we carried up from the cars. Fine, I'll put the stuff away, 9 says as he agreeably lumbers off to put away our gear. But then we're gonna at least talk about kicking some ass. I notice 5 staring down 9 as he leaves the room. Then he turns to John. We're not really going to fight again right away, are we? John shakes his head. 9's just excited. Getting together was a huge first step. Now we need to figure out what to do next. I see, says 5, gazing down at his hands. I guess I've never viewed violence as something to get excited about. We're not all like 9, Marina says apologetically as she steps forward. She greets us warmly, even pulling 5 into a hug, which I think both surprises him and loosens him up a bit. She definitely puts me more at ease after 9's brisk display. 8 introduces himself next. I get a real easygoing vibe from him, a nice change of pace from the alpha male routine 9 pulled as soon as we showed up. Still, I can tell he's just as excited as 9 was. He's just more tactful. I've got so many questions for you, all of you, 8 says. 5, I'm dying to know where you've been, to hear about everything that's happened to you. Ugh, grunts 5. Okay. I'm sure you've overcome a lot to be here, 8 continues encouragingly. The grunting is all John and I could get out of him in the car, Sarah whispers to me. I can understand feeling a bit overwhelmed in this situation. You meet the last living remnants of your people for the first time, and it turns out they've already been hanging out a bunch. In a way, it's nice to have 5 with me, even though we're not talking much either. It's good to have someone equally awkward along in these social situations. You were living in Jamaica before, right? 8 asks 5. That's right, 5 replies. For a little while, anyway. 8 looks like he's expecting 5 to elaborate. When he doesn't, John jumps in. It was a long ride back, and I think everyone is a little tired. Maybe we can share stories at dinner, John suggests. 8 nods and doesn't press 5 for any more details. I get that John is trying to handle 5 with kid gloves, letting him acclimate to the others at his own speed. I'm a little surprised 5 isn't asking more questions about others, but part of that seems to be a reluctance to answer any questions about his own past. Judging by the fact that he showed up without a C-pan or a chest, I'm sure it's the kind of grim backstory all these guard have. With 8 done trying to wring information from 5, the last of the new guard is able to step forward and introduce herself. Even though 6 told me she'd be younger, I'm still surprised at how small Ella is in person. I can't imagine this girl stepping up to oppose Citrekis Ra, much less somehow being the key to scaring him off. But that's the way 6 said it went. I'm impressed. I didn't know there was supposed to be a 10th guard, says 5 as he shakes Ella's hand. It's the closest thing he's had to a question about the others since we walked in. There wasn't. I was sort of an accident. I noticed John shoot Marina a curious look. Marina raises her eyebrows in response, mouthing, I'll tell you later. 5 nods at Ella's response, studying her for a moment longer before looking down at the floor. 5 says, searching for words. I've kind of felt that way about myself, actually. Our numbers, our inheritances, the whole mission to Earth. I mean, how much thought did the big elders put into this whole thing? Do you think they just, drew our names out of a hat? Everyone is silent for a moment, staring at 5. It's a pretty strange speech, especially when you consider this is the first time the remaining guard have ever been united. It should be a celebratory time, but 5 seems intent on bringing things down. Yeah, says 8, cheerily breaking the silence. It is kind of funny when you put it like that. My dad clears his throat, his voice soft. I can assure you more thought was put into your selection than just a random drawing. He turns to Ella, giving her the same reassuring look I used to get when I'd come home from school after being bullied. And your escape from Lorien was certainly more than an accident. More like a blessing, I'd say. Right. Says 5, still staring at the floor as he addresses my dad. I guess the old human would be an expert on Lorien. He glances up then, forcing a smile as he notices the rest of us fixing him with weird looks. Sorry, he adds quickly. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know what I'm talking about either. I don't consider myself an expert, my dad says diplomatically. I'm sorry if I offended you, but I believe in the work of your elders. If I didn't, he trails off, probably thinking about the time he spent as a Mogadorian captive. 5 looks sheepish now. 4, John, I'm pretty tired. Is there a place where I can lay down for a while? Sure, man. John replies, patting 5 on the back. Why don't I show all you guys where the rooms are? A few minutes ago I empathized with 5 for what an awkward situation this must be for him, but I don't know. Something about the way he talked to my dad really rubbed me the wrong way. There was almost a note of disdain in his voice, like my father couldn't possibly have any useful information about the guard. The whole group, minus 9, led us down a hallway covered in works of art that would probably fetch a small fortune at a museum auction. I still can't believe a dude like 9 lives here. I feel like I should be wearing a tuxedo just walking around. As we walk through the penthouse, Sarah and 6 break off to get cleaned up from the road, and Ella excuses herself to go help 9 put away the gear. Eventually, John stops in the middle of the hallway. This one's free, John says, opening a door for 5. There are some extra clothes in the drawers, too, in case you feel like a change. Thanks, 5 says, trudging into the room. He's about to slam the door, but realizes we're all lingering outside, kind of staring at him. See you guys at dinner, I guess, he mutters before closing the door. Cool, dude, 8 says dryly. Marina elbows him in the ribs and shushes him. I glance towards the closed door where I bet 5 is still standing, listening. I feel a little sorry for him again. It isn't easy being an outsider. John turns to my dad and me. Are you guys beat too, or do you want the grand tour? Nah, I say. Lead on. This is my first penthouse. Mine too, my dad adds, smiling. Awesome, John replies, looking relieved that we aren't being as antisocial as 5. I think you guys are really going to like the next stop. My dad trails a few feet behind the group, admiring the artwork. Once we've continued down the hallway and put 5's room out of earshot, 8 asks the question that I think most of us are thinking. What's with the new guy? He glances over at me. Not you, Sam. You seem perfectly normal. Thanks. John shakes his head, looking a little bewildered. I don't know, honestly. He's a little strange, right? Not exactly what I was expecting. He's probably just nervous, Marina adds. He'll settle in. Where's his C-Pan? I ask. What has he been doing all these years? He was pretty closed off the whole car ride back, John answers. Even Sarah couldn't get much out of him, and you know how she is. Yeah, she's social enough to get you, secretive Lorik, talking about pretty much anything. John chuckles, catching my joke right away. Sarah's so charming she could convince an on-the-run alien to get his picture taken for the school paper. So charming that same alien might even throw rocks at her window in the middle of the night, even if the feds are staking out her home. 8 and Marina exchange a look of confusion as John and I start laughing. You threw rocks at Sarah's window? Marina asks John, her eyebrow cocked in amusement. Like Romeo and Juliet? Allegedly, according to the FBI. Oh, check it out. We're here, John says, anxious to change the subject. I smirk at Marina and nod. At the end of the hall, John shows us into a room that looks like the guard have been using for a base of operations. There are huge computer screens on one wall, one of them running a program similar to my dad's web crawler. The Lorik chests are stored here, along with the tablet we recovered from my dad's laboratory. The rest of the room is absolutely cluttered with various pieces of tech, some of it new and just out of the box, other pieces looking like they were recovered from a junkyard. In some places along the walls, the gadgets and spare parts are piled as high as the ceiling. My dad's face immediately lights up. This is quite the collection, he exclaims, his eyes scanning the room like a kid on Christmas morning. 9 C-Pan Sander, this was his workshop, explains John. We've put some of the stuff to use, but none of us are exactly technological whizzes. John turns to my father. I'm hoping you could see if there's anything useful, Mr. Good. Malcolm. My dad rubs his hands together. With pleasure, John. It's been too long since I had a place like this at my disposal. I've got a lot of catching up to do. I'm also wondering if you could take a look at this, John says, motioning us through a set of double doors. 9 calls it the lecture hall. Entering a huge, high-ceilinged white room, we pass by an intimidating weapons rack which makes the guns my dad acquired in Texas look like toys. The room is about the size of our high school's gym, making me marvel all over again at the overall hugeness of the penthouse. At one end of the room, a large cockpit-style apparatus is built into the wall, an array of consoles set up around it. The chair looks sort of smashed, like something huge fell on top of it. Amazing, remarks my dad. We've been using this room to train. 9 says that Sander had a bunch of traps and obstacles hooked up at one point. He taps a panel on the wall where it looks like something should shoot out, but nothing happens. Except 9 threw a temper tantrum and smashed the controls. Now it only sort of works. Sounds about right, I say. It's definitely not hard to picture 9 flying off the handle. That thing, he says, waving to the chair, it's called the lectern. If we could get it working again, I think we could really improve our training. My dad is already kneeling down before the lectern. And the page won't turn. Picking at frayed wires and bent steel plating. This is very impressive work, he says. I examine the machinery over his shoulder even though I have no idea what I'm looking at. Can you fix it? I can try, he says, turning back to John. I'll be of service in any way possible. Me too, I say, giving John a quick salute. He chuckles. I know you just got here, John says. I hope I'm not being pushy. Honestly, it's just really good to have you here. And not to get all sappy, but I'm glad you guys found each other. When John talks about me and my dad, there's a bit of longing in his voice. I wonder if he's thinking about how we could have had this conversation in paradise, my dad and Henry dorking out about technology together if only things had played out a little differently. My dad shakes John's hand again, patting him on the arm as he does. We're glad we found you, John. I know it's been hard for all of you, but you're not alone in this. Not anymore. Chapter 16. Marina really goes overboard with the dinner spread. There are dishes heaped with rice and beans and fresh tortillas, an iced bowl of gazpacho, some kind of fried honeyed eggplant dish, and like a dozen other Spanish dishes that I don't even know the names of. I've forgotten how good home cooking can be, and I eat wolfishly, going back for seconds and then thirds. We're all seated beneath the glittering chandelier in Nine's banquet hall of a dining room. John sits at one end, my father at the other, and the rest of us in between. I sit next to my father and Nine. Crazy, 9 mumbles as he scoops a tortilla into his mouth. Never had so many people at this table. Everyone is relaxed, just chatting and joking around. 5 eats a lot, but he doesn't say much. Next to him, Ella picks at her food, looking tired yet still smiling and laughing whenever someone cracks a good joke. 6 is sitting right across the table from me. I try to play it cool and not stare at her too much. When the meal is over, John stands up and gets everyone's attention. He glances at Sarah and receives an encouraging smile. He clears his throat and I can tell he's given a lot of thought to what he's about to say. It's really incredible to see everyone come together like this. All of us have come so far to be here and gone through so much. Being here, it gives me hope that we could actually win this war. 9 lets out a high-pitched whoop-whoop noise that makes everyone laugh, even cracking John's serious speech-giving face for a moment. 5 looks around at everyone, a quiet smile on his face like he's finally starting to feel more comfortable. I know some of us have just met for the first time, John continues. So I thought it might be helpful if we went around the table and told our stories. There's a fun topic, mutters 6. John is undeterred. I know some of the stories, okay, probably all of them, aren't really the happiest, but I think it's important for us to remember how we got here and what we're fighting for. Looking over at 5, I understand what John is doing. He's hoping that by telling their stories, the guard might get their newest member to open up a little. Speaking as one of the new arrivals, I'd really like to hear what we've all been through, says my dad. What you've all been through, says my dad. Yeah, 5 chimes in, surprising everyone. Me too. Okay, says John, I can start. John launches into a story that's more than familiar to me. He starts during his arrival to paradise after years on the road. He talks about meeting Sarah and me and how it became harder and harder to keep his legacies a secret. John concludes his tale with the battle at our high school, Six's nick of time arrival, and Henry's death. We're all quiet after that, none of us sure what to say. Oh, damn, Nine says. I almost forgot. Nine reaches under his chair and produces a bottle of champagne chilling in a bucket of ice. I shoot a quick look at my dad, but it doesn't look like he's in the mood to play responsible adult. Instead, he holds out his glass. Quickly, Nine circles around the table pouring for everyone. Even Ella gets a little bit. Where did this come from? Aid asks. My secret stash. Don't worry about it. Finished pouring, Nine raises his glass. To Henry. Everyone raises their glasses and toasts Henry. He keeps it together well, but I can tell John is touched by the gesture. He looks down the table and gives Nine a small nod of thanks. Hell, even I'm a little surprised by Nine. Between this and our little heart-to-heart in the doorway earlier, I might have to upgrade him from total douchebag to minor tool. Maybe you guys should recruit the entire town of Paradise to fight for us, Five says. It sounds like a real alien-friendly place. We should get that on bumper stickers, I say. My honor student fought aliens at Paradise High School. I can go next, Six says. She keeps her story quick, starting with her capture with Katerina, moving on to their imprisonment and jumping quickly to her escape. To Katerina, this time. It's John leading the toast. Everyone raises their glasses again and we drink to Six's fallen C-Pan. And that's why you don't post shit on the internet, Nine says, referring to Six's story but aiming a sharp look in Five's direction. Five gazes back at Nine, saying nothing. You are both close with your C-Pans, Marina speaks up. My story's a little different. Marina tells us about growing up in Spain, how her C-Pan Adelina basically neglected her, not giving her the training or knowledge that the other guard take for granted. I'm kind of stunned that Aloric would behave that way. It's never occurred to me that they could shirk their duties, their responsibilities. It could be a really bitter story, but the way Marina describes it is sadder than anything else. Her voice gets warm when she talks about Hector, the human who took it upon himself to protect her. In a weird way, the story almost has a happy ending, with Adelina finally accepting her duties, even if it meant dying. I guess that's not super happy, actually, but the way Marina tells it makes it at least seem heroic. 8 raises his glass. To Hector and Adelina, he says. 9 goes next. Apparently it was 9's fault that everything fell apart in his life. He fell for a human girl who was secretly working for the Mogadorians, and she led him and his C-Pan into a trap. 9 glosses over what happened to them once they were captured, having some first-hand experience with the horrific things that go down in West Virginia. The dark look in 9's eyes when he finishes doesn't surprise me at all. To Sander, John says. To Sander and his champagne, adds 8, which gets a smile out of 9. I guess you really got lucky, 5 says to John, jerking his thumb in Sarah's direction. She could have been a Mog spy, too. Hey, Sarah replies, not cool. They forced her, growls 9, referring to the girl he'd fallen for. No human in their right mind would willingly work for those sons of bitches. Except the government is, I say, remembering the agents that transported me from West Virginia to Dulce. 9 turns to me. Well, any human that work with those albino ash monsters can't be in their right mind. Or maybe they aren't willing, John says. I have to believe that most humans, if they knew the truth, would be on our side. I used to distrust humans, says 8. Reynolds, my C-Pan, was betrayed by a woman he'd fallen in love with. It took me a while to get over that, but eventually I came to believe in the inherent good of humanity. 8 goes on to tell us how he learned to control his legacies, and that he eventually came into contact with the local villagers who believed him to be the Hindu god Vishnu, reincarnated. Even though the Mogadorians knew his location, they weren't able to get to him because of a human army that protected him. 5 studies 8, nodding, looking like something new and amazing has just occurred to him. That's great, he says. You tricked them into thinking you were one of their gods? I didn't mean to trick them, exactly, says 8 defensively. I regret not being more honest. You shouldn't, continues 5. I mean, it's great if you can, make friends with the humans like John and Marina did. Otherwise, better to have them fighting for you than plotting against you, right? He glances over at 9. Better to be in control than blindly chasing pretty human girls around. 9 leans forward like he's about to get out of his seat. What are you trying to say? Mistakes have been made, John interjects carefully. But we need to remember that the humans are fighting the same enemy we are. Even if they don't all realize it yet, we can't fight this battle alone. To humanity, I say jokingly, raising my glass. Everyone looks at me and I put my glass down, feeling a little lightheaded. It's tense for a moment. 9 is still staring down 5. Ella raises her hand. I'd like to share, she says. Her story is unlike any of the others I've heard. She wasn't sent to Earth with the other guard. Instead, her rich weirdo father shoved her onto a spaceship along with the family's butler and a bunch of chimera. Looking around the table, I get the sense that not even some of the other guard have heard this whole story. John looks particularly confused and Six listens intently. Wow, Ella, John says. When did you learn all this? Yesterday, she replies matter-of-factly. It was in Creighton's letter. Marina raises her glass. To Creighton, a great sea-pan. Everyone follows suit. Ella's gone quiet. I can tell this Creighton guy meant a lot to her. Just think, muses Five. If our spaceship hadn't made it to Earth, you'd have to save the planet all by yourself. Ella's eyes widen. I hadn't thought of that. You could handle it, Nine says, grinning. So, John says, looking at Five, we've all told you how we came to be here. Your turn. How have you managed to stay hidden for so long? Yeah, dude, 8 chimes in. Spill it. 5 slouches down in his chair. For a moment, I think he's just going to stay silent and hope that everyone forgets about him, like a kid hiding out in the back of a classroom. He's great at making pointed little comments when other people talk, but when it's time to tell his own story, he's more than reluctant. It's not, exciting like your stories were, 5 begins after a moment. We didn't do anything special to stay hidden. We just got lucky, I guess. Found places where the Mogadorians weren't looking for us. Where was that, exactly? John asks. Islands, answers 5. Tiny islands where no one would think to look. Some that aren't even on the maps. We'd go from island to island, sort of like how you guys traveled from town to town. Every few months we'd go to one of the more populated places, sometimes Jamaica or Puerto Rico, and trade in some of our gems for supplies. Otherwise, we kept to ourselves. What happened to your sea-pan? Marina gently asks. I guess I do have that in common with the rest of you guys. He died. His name was Albert. Mogadorians? Nine asks, his voice hard. No, it wasn't like that, 5 answers, hesitating. It wasn't some big battle or brave sacrifice. He just got sick, and after a while he died. He was older, I think, than the way you guys described your sea-pan. He could have passed for my grandfather. I don't think the voyage to Earth was good to him. He was always ill. The warm climate helped some, I guess. We were on this little island in the South Caribbean when he got really bad. I didn't know how to help him. 5 trails off. We're all silent, letting him take his time. He wouldn't let me get a doctor. He was too worried that if he was examined, they'd discover something about him and we'd tip off the Mogadorians. I'd never even seen a Mogadorian. It all seemed like make-believe to me, 5 laughs bitterly, almost as if he's mad at himself. For a while, I even convinced myself he was a crazy man that kidnapped me, that he cut these scars into my leg while I was sleeping. I try to imagine what life must have been like for 5, never interacting with anyone but a sickly old man. It goes a little ways to explaining why he seems so awkward around the others. It wasn't until my telekinesis developed that I really started to believe Albert, and that's also when he got really sick. On his deathbed, he made me promise that once my legacies had fully developed, I'd try to find you guys. Until then, he made me promise to stay hidden. You did a good job of that, 6 says. I'm sorry about Albert, adds Ella. Thank you, 5 says. He was a good man, and I wish that I'd listened to him more. After he was gone, it was easy for me to just go through the motions. I kept island hopping, keeping my distance from everyone. It was, lonely, I guess. The days went by in a blur. Eventually, my other legacies developed and I came to America, hoping to find you guys. What happened to your chest? John asks. Oh yeah, that, 5 replies nervously, scratching the side of his head. I traveled mostly by boat. Albert had taught me to find the kinds of ships that wouldn't, ask too many questions. When I first landed in Florida, there were way more people than I was used to. A lone kid carrying around that damn chest. I felt like everyone was staring at me, like I'd just found some buried treasure on one of the islands or something. Maybe I was being paranoid, but I thought everyone was looking to steal it. So what did you do with it? John presses. I didn't think it was smart for me to keep carrying it around. I found a secluded spot in the Everglades, and I buried it there. 5 looks around at the group. Was that a bad idea? I buried mine for pretty much the same reason, 6 answers. When I went back for it, someone had taken it. Oh, 5 sputters. Oh, crap. If your chest hiding skills are as good as your regular hiding skills, I'm sure it's still there, 8 says optimistically. We'll want to get that as soon as possible, John says. Five nods eagerly. Yeah, of course. I remember exactly where I put it. The chests are imperative, my dad blurts out. He pinches the bridge of his nose, which I'd noticed he'd started doing whenever he's struggling to remember something. Each of the chests contains something. I'm not sure exactly what or how it works, but there are items in those chests that will help you reconnect with Lorien when the time comes. Everyone started staring raptly at him now. How do you know that? John asks. I just remembered, my dad replies. Nine looks over at me, then back to my dad. What? I suppose it's time for my story now, he says, staring at all the expectant faces. I should warn you that there are gaps in my memories. The Mogadorians did something to me. They tried to tear what I knew out of my brain. Things are coming back to me now in pieces. I'll tell you what I can. But how did you find that out in the first place? Aid asks. We don't even really understand what's in our chests. My dad pauses, looking around at the group. I know because Pittacus Lore told me. What? Pittacus Lore? Oh my god! I'm sorry. Sorry. Moving on. Chapter 17. You could hear a pin drop. John is the first to speak. How did he tell you? What do you mean? He told me in person, my dad replies. You're telling us you met Pittacus Lore, exclaims a skeptical Nine. How is that possible? Marina asks. We found a skeleton in your workshop wearing a Lorik pendant. John swallows hard before continuing. Was that him? My dad lowers his gaze. I'm afraid so. When he arrived, his wounds were so grievous that there was nothing I could do for him. Now the questions come on in a rush. What did he tell you? How did he get to Earth? Why did he pick you? Did you know Johnny thinks he's Pittacus resurrected? My dad motions downward with his hands, like a conductor would when he's trying to quiet a noisy orchestra. He looks exhilarated by all the questions, and simultaneously like he's struggling to remember the answers. I don't know why I was chosen out of all of Earth's population, my dad explains. I was an astronomer. My particular area of interest was in deep space, specifically with trying to make contact with alien life forms. I believed that there were signs here on Earth of visitation from aliens, which didn't exactly make me popular with some of my less imaginative colleagues. You were right, though, says Eight. The Lorelite is here. The Lorelite is here. Those cave paintings we found in India. Exactly, continues my dad. Most of my peers in the scientific community dismissed me as a madman. I suppose I must have seemed like one, ranting on about extraterrestrial visitors. He glances around. And yet, here you are. Thanks for the resume, interrupts Nine, but can we get to the Pittacus part? My dad smiles. I'd begun sending communication bursts into space from a laboratory using radio waves. I believed I was onto something. This was on my own time. I'd been, dismissed, I suppose, from my position at the university. I kind of remember that, I say. Mom was pissed. I don't know what I was expecting from my experiments. A response, certainly. Perhaps a burst of alien music or images of a strange galaxy. My dad snorts, shaking his head at how unprepared he was. I got more than I bargained for. One night, a man showed up at my door. He was wounded and rambling. At first, I mistook him for a crackpot or a vagrant. And then, before my very eyes, he grew. Taller? Six asks, an eyebrow raised. My dad chuckles. Indeed. It doesn't seem like much now, considering all I've seen, but it was the first time I'd seen a legacy at work. I wish I could say that I reacted with proper scientific curiosity, but instead I think I did a fair bit of screaming. I nod. Sounds like the good way. A guard on Earth? Breathes Marina. Who was he? He called himself Pittacus Lore. Nine scoffs and shoots John a look. Everyone thinks they're Pittacus. You're saying you met an elder, John says, ignoring Nine, or someone claiming to be an elder. What did he look like? What did he say? Ella asks. First, he told me that his injuries were caused by a hostile alien race that would soon be coming to Earth. He told me he would not survive the night, and he wasn't wrong. My dad closes his eyes, willing his brain to work. Pittacus told me much in the short time he had left, but I'm afraid the details are fuzzy. He asked me to prepare a group of humans to receive you, to help your sea-pans get on the run, to provide guidance. I was the first of the greeters. What else did he tell you? John asks, sitting forward eagerly. One thing I remember is about your chests, the inheritances. He told me they would each contain something. He called them Phoenix Stones, I think, taken from the heart of Lorien. Although he called them stones, I don't think we need to take that literally. The Phoenix Stones could come in any shape or form, and when restored to your planet, these items should jumpstart the ecosystem. I believe right now you are in possession of the tools to bring your home world back to life. Marina and A exchange an excited look, perhaps thinking about that lush Lorien that John's always going on about. But what about the chests we've already lost? Six asks. I thought the contents were destroyed when their guard dies. My dad shakes his head. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that. I can only hope that what remains of your inheritances will be enough. Look, restoring Lorien is cool and all, Nine says, but I'm not hearing anything that's going to help us kill Mogadorians or protect Earth. My CPAN told me each of us would inherit the legacies of an elder, 8 says. I always thought I was Pittacus, but he glances over at John, then shrugs. Did he tell you anything about that? No, my dad replies. At least, not that I can remember right now. When your CPAN said he'd inherit the legacies of an elder, he might not have been speaking literally. It could have been a metaphor for the roles you will grow up to take on in a rebuilt Lorien society. It can't be as simple as you becoming the elders, because 3 of you are already lost, and Ella's presence here seems to indicate that nothing is so cut and dry. So, we're just as in the dark as we were before, Six says curtly, then looks over at me. Not that it isn't an interesting story. Hold on, says John, still mulling over what my dad said. There's definitely information we can use. The chests, for instance. We need to take an inventory, see if we can figure out which of our items are these Phoenix things. Probably anything that doesn't stab, shoot, or explode, offers Nine helpfully. I'll try to help there, if I can, my dad offers. Seeing the contents of your chest might jog something in my memory. What happened to the other greeters? 5 asks. Are they still alive? My dad's expression darkens. Now we're getting to the part of the story that I know something about. Pretty soon we're going to be hitting the whole good Mogadorian saved us from certain death bit. My dad still hasn't given up hope for Adam. He was checking his phone right before dinner. With him not getting in touch for this long, I'm starting to think he didn't make it out. Dead or alive, I'm really not sure how Adam's existence and our involvement with him is going to go over with the guard. I assembled the greeters myself. They were people I could trust, like-minded scientists working on the fringes. But I can't remember their names or even their faces. The Mogadorians saw to that. My dad picks up his glass of champagne with a shaky hand and takes a quick drink. He makes a bitter face, like it didn't help ease the pain of memory, or lack thereof. We all knew the risks, my dad continues, eventually. We took them gladly. It was a chance to be part of something amazing. I still believe that. He says with a note of pride, looking around at the guard. Just as the Mogadorians were searching for you, so were they searching for us. Obviously, we were easier to find. We'd been living on Earth all our lives, you see. We had families. One by one, they tracked us down. They hooked us up to machines, tried to rip out our memories, looking for anything that would help them in their hunt. It's why there are so many things I'm still foggy on. I don't know if the harm they did to me can ever be fixed. Ella shoots a look at Marina, then John. Could you guys heal him? We could try, Marina replies, studying my dad. I've never tried healing someone's mind before, though. My dad runs a hand through his beard, frowning. I was the only one that survived. I lost years to those bastards. He looks over at me. I intend to pay them back. How did you escape them? John asks. I had help. The Mogadorians had me sedated for years in a catatonic state, waking me up only when they had a new experiment to run on my mind. Eventually, though, a boy set me free. A boy? Marina asks, her eyebrow raised. I don't get it, 8 says. How did someone manage to get into a Mog base? Was he one of the government agents, and why did he help you? Before my father can answer, 5 speaks up. The way he's eyeballing my dad, it's like he's already pieced together the entire story. He wasn't human, was he? My dad looks first at 5, then over at John before turning his gaze on me. He called himself Adam, but his actual name was Adamus. He was a Mogadorian. A Mogadorian helped you? Marina asks quietly, as everyone else stares at my dad in stunned silence. 9 stands up suddenly, looking over at John. Dude, this has trap written all over it. We have to lock this place down. John raises a hand, trying to placate 9. None of the others stand up with 9, which is a relief. Still, they're looking at each other anxiously, and even though I trust the guard, I'm suddenly worried that they might not trust my dad. Calm down, John tells 9. We need the whole story here. Malcolm, what you're saying is pretty crazy. I know, believe me, he replies. What I learned is that there are 2 kinds of Mogadorians. Some of them are grown through genetic engineering. They call them vat-born. I believe they're the throwaway soldiers you've run into so often. The hideous ones that could never pass for human. They're bred simply for killing. And then there are others. They call themselves Trueborn. They are the ruling class. Adam was one of them, the son of a Mogadorian general. Interesting, 8 says. I never thought of how their society works. Who cares? Growls 9. He's standing with his hands on the back of his chair like he's ready to fling it. Get to the part that proves this isn't some Mogadorian setup. They experimented on Adam with the same machines they used on my memory, my father continues, not deterred by the rising tension. They had the body of a guard, number 1, I believe, and they tried to download her memories into him, thinking it would help them find the rest of you. Her body? Marina says quietly. That's sick. My dad nods in agreement. It didn't work the way the Mogadorians intended. Exposed to one's memories, I believe Adam developed doubts about his people. He rebelled. In the process, he helped me escape and find Sam. 9 shakes his head. This is the kind of double agent shit they love to pull, he insists. You met this Mog kid? 6 asks me. Now everyone's looking at me with the same scrutiny they were just using on my dad. I clear my throat, feeling uncomfortable. Yeah. He was at the Dulce base. He held off a squadron of Mogs while my dad and I escaped. My dad frowns, looking down at the table. I fear he didn't survive the battle. Well, that's a relief, grumbles 9, finally retaking his seat. There's something else, I say, glancing hesitantly at my father, wondering exactly how I should phrase this next revelation. What is it, Sam? John asks. During the fight, he made the ground shake. It was like he had a legacy. Bullshit on top of bullshit, snorts 9. It's true, counters my dad. I forgot about that. Something happened to him during the experiment. Ella speaks up, a note of fear in her voice. Is that true? They can steal our powers? I don't think he stole the legacy, my dad clarifies. He said it was a gift from the Loric. 8 looks around. You guys remember giving any Mogadorians gifts? John folds his arms across his chest. It doesn't seem like it should be possible. I'm sorry this news upsets you, my dad says, looking around. I wanted to tell you everything, even the unpleasant details. Is it really that bad? Asks Marina. I mean, if one of the Mogadorians could understand they're doing wrong, wouldn't others? You want to count on them getting sympathetic now? Snaps 9, and Marina stops talking. Something occurs to me then. Maybe because we'd spent so much time talking about how the Guard developed their legacies and listening to my dad's new details on their home world. Your legacies come from Lorien, right? That's what Henry told me, John says. Katarina too, adds 6. So, if that's the case, it doesn't seem like something that could just be ripped away by some Mog technology. I mean, if they could do that, they'd have stolen more powers from Lorien by now, right? What are you saying? John asks, his eyebrows raised. Well, I guess I'm saying, what if Adam inherited that legacy because one wanted him to? On one side of me, 9 snorts derisively. Yeah. On the other side, my dad makes a thoughtful noise in his throat, stroking his chin. Interesting theory, he says. Yeah, whatever, 9 says, leaning forward to peer at my dad. You're sure this isn't some elaborate Mog trap? You're sure they weren't trailing you? I'm sure of it, my dad replies with authority. Down the table, 5 chuckles. He's been silent for most of the Adam discussion. Now he looks around incredulously. I'm sorry, but half the stories you guys just told me involved humans betraying you to the Mogadorians. He waves a hand at us. These 2 were actually in contact with the Mogs, like, weeks ago, hanging out, and you're just going to trust them? John doesn't hesitate. Yes, he says, looking 5 right in the eyes. I trust them with my life, and if this Mogadorian defector is still alive, we're going to find him. Okay, that was it for Chapter 17. There is another video that's already been recorded that will have chapters 18 through 22 in it. And then I'm going to post both of these. And after that video, we'll continue in the next video with chapter 23. I know it's a little confusing, but I've worked it out. Okay, so that's it for now. Reading by Ree. Until next time. Bye!